Roger Williams University is hosting a crisis management seminar on May 3rd at their Providence campus. Crises, whether a natural disaster, cyber attack, or financial instability, can have severe repercussions if not handled properly. This is where crisis management plays a pivotal role. Join Roger Williams MBA students and expert speakers to learn how to prepare for the unexpected. The program is totally free and open to the public. You can register online at rwu.edu/events/crisis-management-symposium.
This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
With the increasing legalization of cannabis across the country, including most recently Rhode Island, the cannabis industry is growing at a rapidly accelerating pace. If you are already in the industry or wondering what is the best path to break into the cannabis field, well, the University of Rhode Island has a program to help educate you in the evolving space. Fully accredited by URI's College of Pharmacy, the online certificate program covers topics related to product development, chemical analysis and testing, and patient and customer therapeutics. The next application deadline for the spring 2023 session is November 29th, and courses start January 10th. Join them at 2 upcoming info sessions and learn more at uri.edu/online/cannabis or give them a call at 401-874-5280.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today, and thanks to our panelists. I think just to keep it moving rather than set it up with full autobiographies, if we could just go through kind of a quick summary of who you are and how you're related to this topic at hand, and we'll just work, I guess, from left to right.
Sure, can you hear me? I'm Brian Thorn. I'm Director of Broadband Strategy with the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation.
Yeah, and I'm Tommy Sheehan. I'm with the Newport Housing Authority. I'm a resident and a resident commissioner.
Maria Rivera, the mayor of the city of Central Falls.
And Jennifer Hawkins, Executive Director of Monday Builders.
So I guess let's keep it really basic to begin with. What does digital equity mean to you? Let's start with Jen.
You know, it means that parents don't have to be bringing their children to the library or to the parking lot of Panera in order to help do their homework at night.
It means to me that the residents of the city of Central Falls, a low-income community of Black and brown people, are entitled to have the same benefits as the rest of the communities in Central Falls and access to broadband and high-speed internet.
So coming from Newport, I compared it to, we have a beautiful private school, St. George's, and when I was asked what we wanted for our residents, I said what they have. And that's equity. And that's what we got.
For me, I think it means equal access to all of the transformative potentials that are unlocked by broadband access.
So there's a really fascinating case study that took place in Olneyville that's going to be released, I think, in like 5 minutes, but it will be discussed in depth in a panel following this one. But there's some other interesting things that have taken place in this space, specific examples of where the right people, the right dollar amounts can transform a municipality or region dramatically through the lens of digital equity. Mayor Rivera, let's talk about Central Falls Connect. Talk about that program and where the need was identified and how that challenge was resolved, if it has been resolved.
Sure, thank you. So last month, we launched Central Falls Connect. We partnered with Education Superhighway, which is a nonprofit, a federal nonprofit. They reached out to us and said, we want to help your community. After a few conversations with them, we launched it. And I can tell you that at the time when we had the conversation with them, we had 32% of the residents who were signed up for free internet or low-income internet. And as of today, we have over 50% of the community that has signed up. This has happened because we care about the community. We put a team of people together. We're working with the different nonprofits in the city, with the library, with Progreso Latino, with the housing authority, with the school district, making sure that we have direct contacts to the families of the city, letting them know that you qualify for internet. There's no reason for the children at home that have to do their work to not have high-speed internet to do their work. There's no reason for the elderly to be isolated. They should have access to internet to connect to social media, to whatever they want to connect with. they should have the ability to be able to apply for their benefits, for their medical, for their SNAP benefits, because they have high-speed internet, instead of having to go to an office and wait for hours, or be on the phone for hours. For families to connect with their families outside of the country, we have a population of over 70% who are Latinos who have families that are not from this country. And we need to make sure that they stay connected with their families. This has been, it's been a great program for the community. We have someone who sits at City Hall every day, Monday through Friday, just making sure that when residents come in looking for internet, that we have that person there to guide them. We have my chief of staff who goes to the housing authority a few times a week after her job. This is her second job. Making sure that she's helping the elderly, the people who are disabled, through the process. So we're just not putting the benefit out there and telling them, this is for you, this is what you have to do. No, we are there to help them through the process. The school district is doing it, the housing authority is doing it, we're doing it at City Hall, we have someone at the library who's helping with this, we have Progreso Latino who's also helping with this. And we're just there to help them. You know, we partnered with Cox and Verizon. So Cox and Verizon have been a huge asset to the city of Central Falls and making sure that all the programs are $30 for free. Or under $30 for free.
So basically, this program provides credit for up to $30 towards the internet. And it sounds like a major piece of this is outreach, where you have to, look, Mayor, I mean, you do great work in Central Falls. You're probably not going door to door, you know, with your chief of staff alone. You need those partners, those community partners.
Yeah, it's definitely outreach. So I have a weekly newsletter that goes out. It's in the weekly newsletter. We are constantly on social media talking about this. We have people who are working throughout the week just focused on this. So yes, it's definitely the partners that we're working with and the outreach. And I have to say that besides the $30 credit for free internet, they also qualify for $100 off for a free laptop, desktop, or a tablet.
So that's sort of an excellent example of where progress is being made in this sector. Another example is in Newport, where, you know, people may not realize, but internet in Newport is monopolized by one company, Hawkins, that, you know, is more expensive than the rest of the state, but it's not necessarily delivering in a competitive way when you compare it to the rest of the state. So I want to talk about the Broadband initiative that took place inside the Newport Housing Authority, Tommy, but also Brian. You know, this was funded through a grant awarded by Commerce Rhode Island. So let's start with an overview of this. You know, I love that comparison, St. George versus, you know, the rest of the city. And I think that's where you're trying to get to in all senses, not only in access, but in terms of quality.
So I gotta tell you, I'm just, when I say just a resident, I'm surrounded by directors up here, Director of Commerce, with the Broadband. And it started in the pandemic. My sister works at Pell School. She's a social worker there. And I live in the high rise. I looked out and I was wondering, what the heck is happening to the kids? They have some hot spots out there. And I know if I was a 12-year-old, heck, when I'm 60, I'm 67 now, if I start buffering, I'm done. So I wondered what we could do. And fortunately, I had an executive director, Rhonda Mitchell, that thought bigger than I did, because I was just thinking of my direct neighborhood. She said, let's see what we can do for the whole community. And we were fortunate. We have the Van Buren Foundation there. They directed me to the ocean people. And, you know, I have no tech experience. I learned about latency a little late in life. So, you know, I just the people that I was dealing with were so supportive. And now I'm working with Brian. The opportunities that exist out there and people that really want this to happen, it really is wonderful. And when I think of it, it was myself and my brother wrote the grant. Two regular people. And it's amazing what can happen if you can get the residents engaged and really going forward. So lots of support out there.
Yeah, this program, this grant funded the expansion of broadband in 6 buildings inside the Newport Housing Authority. So it's a microcosm of a larger issue, but how can we extrapolate that, Brian, and turn it into impact on a larger scale?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the task of the new Broadband Digital Equity Office at Rhode Island Commerce. And just to take a step back and give some more context there, we really are having a historic opportunity to increase the efficacy of some of this federal money that's going to be coming from the state. We're going to have 5 times the amount of federal money for broadband in Rhode Island than has ever entered the state previously. And what does that mean at the federal level? The bipartisan infrastructure law allocated about $65 billion for broadband efforts. And in the state of Rhode Island, that means we're going to get about $125 million into the state. Now, it's not coming tomorrow, it's a long process, but we're hoping to unlock the first $5 million for planning, for technical assistance, and for mapping. And then after that, we're going to have a 5-year action plan, and that's for the not only the infrastructure deployment piece of Rhode Island's program, but also the digital equity plan. And we're really hoping to learn from Tommy, from Mayor Rivera, from One Neighborhood Builders, so that we can replicate and scale these really excellent digital equity efforts that are already underway and bring them across the state.
Jen, again, I'll tease the fact that the next panel will be revealing the Onlyville project, so we don't want to dig into it too far here. But I guess we can sort of, what have you learned about plugging the big gaps when it comes to digital equity through your work?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just even bring us back to what it was like in March of 2020, right? When I just remember being at home and my husband and my daughter and myself were all trying to get online, and just remember thinking how immensely grateful I was that it wasn't hard. And thinking about the community in which I work and spend most of my time in, which is the Onlyville neighborhood, I just felt like if we didn't try something, we were failing our neighbors. And it was, as I mentioned, that sort of somewhat of a sense of hubris of just we're going to figure this out, and try to not boil the ocean of we're going to do everything all at once. Really sort of figured, how can we provide free internet to some portion of the neighborhood? And it was out of that genuine sense of desire to do something that meaningful, but also intermingled with ignorance, that landed us where we're at. And you'll hear all those details in the next session, but just to respond to your question, we are covering about a third of the neighborhood of Onlyville at this point. About 2,500 households have access to the internet. And Onlyville, according to census data, was one of the communities with the least percentage of in-home high-speed internet. And we really took advantage of the fact that the geography of Onlyville was such that you could have access points placed on top of roofs and relay the data. Each of the solutions that you're hearing here in Newport, Sunny Falls, and in Onlyville are different. And there is no one-size-fits-all response to broadband, and that, I think, is going to be really important in working with the state in bringing this to other communities to really recognize that each community has to have a different solution. But the fact that the geography of Onlyville is essentially flat, there's not a lot of tall buildings, and because One Neighborhood Builders owns, I think it's 90% of properties, in this very small, dense area, we were able to come up with our Wi-Fi mesh solution. So it's, we're constantly trying to plug additional holes and add additional access points on roofs and monitor where there's gaps and where there's slow speeds and kind of do this patchwork. So it's definitely a work in progress, and the technology changes and evolves so rapidly that you really have to constantly be feeding the network.
And what's interesting, I learned through reporting during the pandemic, especially at the beginning, is that we have challenges in our urban core, no doubt about it, but also throughout rural portions of the state. So you talk about that patchwork. Yeah, I mean, every scenario is different. And that leads to a question of, all right, we have all these different scenarios. There's going to be a pile of solutions that are ever evolving because of technology. So I'll ask each of you, we'll go down left to right. What's the grand goal of digital equity, Brian?
The grand goal of digital equity from the standpoint of the Broadband Office of Commerce is to ensure that every Rhode Island resident has access to affordable, high-quality, reliable internet, so that we can so that everyone can access some of the benefits Jen described earlier, including telemedicine, education, employment, but also access to civic information. Everyone's that.
Mayor? Well, we're not going to left the road, but I should look up next time. Sorry, Tommy.
Oh, that's right. I got the same goal. So, we're starting with the Newport Housing Authority, but there's lots of properties that abut us, and our goal is to get everyone connected. They have a big North End project coming up right now, and we've been going out and talking to property managers and CEOs, and we believe that we're going to get most of Newport connected within the next, at least the go-ahead to get them connected, and then we'll talk to Ryan.
The goal for me is that no family is unconnected. I think Central Falls faces different challenges. We have a community who doesn't speak the language, so it's important to make sure that we do the right outreach to reach out to these families that don't speak the language or who are not computer savvy. How we guide them through the process and make sure that they have that internet connection that they need.
Jen?
So as you point out, there is a difference between the broadband challenges in the rural parts of the state, where there really just isn't fiber to pull from. And then the urban areas where there's loads of fiber underneath the street, but the hurdle is the cost associated with it. And, for many households, $30, $50, $130 a month is really difficult. And if you have ever had a challenge in the past where maybe you didn't pay your bill, you're essentially prohibited from opening an account again. And that's a really big issue, being able to actually have the credit and the permission to have an account. So there's that issue that I think we are addressing in Olneyville. The issue around rural parts of the state, I think, is separate and equally vital. But I would say, in summary, we did a proof of concept, and I see the big ask here is that we go out of business, that we're able to have a sustainable broadband solution statewide that is funded like a public utility. So that ultimately, I think, is a solution. And until that point happens, one neighborhood builders will keep hustling to make Olneyville and every community in which we have housing developments have broadband access for our residents. But we do hope that eventually we will no longer need to do that.
What's interesting about this as well is, just quickly, we're not putting people on Mars here. Your project, as I understand, around $470,000 in hard capital costs, $80,000 a year to maintain. So obviously that's one neighborhood. You take the super sector, that would be the entire state. It's going to be a lot more, but it's doable.
It's doable. Yeah, it's doable. It is. I'm very curious actually how Central Falls was able to take advantage of BEAD funding, correct, to provide internet in Central Falls, but it is very doable. It's like you said, it's not rocket science and it's not billions of dollars. It is really just being able to appeal to the generosity of a lot of philanthropic partners to make this possible.
I want to make sure we have time to open up the questions here, and we're, like I said, I've been teasing this second panel here, so you guys better deliver. So that's coming up as well. Another thing when we were kind of prepping for this and talking about it is, I was thinking about the smartphone. I was thinking about if you're an entrepreneur, perhaps you have a micro entity, maybe you have a small business, maybe you have a nonprofit, a cause, whatever it may be, and you want to push something out there. There's a digital equity divide when it comes to digital literacy. For example, you got an event like this one. Maybe you hop on Canva, make a flyer, you push it out on Instagram stories, Twitter. These are things that some people take for granted now, and there's a major gap there. That's a line in the sand between the haves and have-nots in Rhode Island's entrepreneurial sector that needs to be closed. How do we do it? Brian?
Well, I think you mentioned devices, and I do want to point out that only about 9% of Rhode Islanders have access to the internet via cell phone, and I want to be careful that a cell phone, accessing the internet via cell phone is no substitute for a larger internet device. If anyone's ever tried to fill out a job application, or if you're a student do homework on a phone, especially if it's only one phone in the household, it's an incredible challenge. So I do think there is a digital literacy challenge, as you mentioned, but there's also a device challenge, and that's part of the affordability and adoption piece. And that's something that the Broadband office, we hope to address through our digital literacy.
9%, less than 10% of the state of Rhode Island has access to the internet through a mobile device?
Through only a mobile device.
Through only mobile.
So they don't have connection to their home, they can only access it via, yeah.
Still shocking, but not quite shocking as I heard. Tommy, on closing that digital divide in terms of digital literacy, how can that be accomplished?
So we've actually been partnering up with, we're fortunate we have Salve Regina University right next to us. They have students that are always willing. They have to work a couple hours a semester or during school year to actually graduate. But and then we partnered up with University of Rhode Island with Cyber Seniors. Van Buren started a program to give out iPads. Really successful program. And they do lots of follow-ups with that. So we're trying to create a program directly with Salve to have students come over and engage with the residents. Because it is an issue. And I speak directly about that. I mean, cutting the cable for me was a process. Just what you're used to. And we still, when I talk to the residents that are trying to either move on from Cox or they're just not sure about it. So getting some education piece out there is important. And I think the universities are a perfect place for that to happen.
Mayor, something adding to that, the entrepreneurial side of this, but also the connection to family and friends, especially when you're talking about a large population a large immigrant population, just using WhatsApp, just using Western Union. These are things that some of us take for granted that have changed the relationship for people who live in other countries. How can that divide be closed? And should it be? I assume it should be.
Yeah, so I think education is key. We have to continue educating the community. The residents of Central Falls hear from us a lot on how we can help them using the resources that are available. With this program, we're not just putting it on newsletters and our social media. Every time we have a public event, we have a table there where Suleyman's there with the different staff that's working with this program, making sure that every resident who comes has access to the information because they don't have access to Facebook or my weekly newsletter. So it's important for us to try to do whatever we can to get to the residents. We sent out stuff in the mail to all of the residents of the city. So it's just trying to continue to reach out to them as much as we can and giving them the resources that are available, which is hard for our community because it's hard to get to them. There's also a lot of fear in the city of Central Falls because we have a lot of documented community, so that makes it hard for them. There are people who don't want to have access to it because of fear.
Yep. Jen.
Thank you. And just to add additional points to the mayor's comments regarding the factor of fear. It is something that we didn't anticipate. We thought that if you say high-speed free internet, everyone will come running. And that was absolutely not the case. And I think that was one of the greatest lessons that we learned was how crucial outreach was and how we communicated this. In some respects, we we're candidly reconsidering the concept of free. I think there's a psychology to having some fee associated with it, even if it's nominal, 99 cents a month, because it's almost too good to be true. Or are you really protecting my privacy? Are you selling me something? So there's that consideration, but also due to the new federal funding, actually community-based internet service providers have to charge a fee in order to be eligible for reimbursement from the infrastructure dollars. So there's a practical side of that reconsideration too. But I just really want to emphasize how important it was that we had a team of trusted, bilingual, local residents doing the outreach, going to a variety of like the food pantry and the schools and say, here, let me show you how to do this. Let's go. See, when you go to this, you hit the Wi-Fi, it says 1MB connect, hit that button. So really trying to help people understand that it was legitimate is a big deal.
Really fascinating stuff on that point. Really interesting. So, all right, at this point, we will invite all of you or any of you who have questions to, we have a roving mic person.
Sweet.
Morning, everyone. Thank you. Hi, Brenda from Housing Works, Rhode Island. Brian from Commerce or anyone, I'd love to hear more about the planning process for the spending, and is there a requirement or a set aside for certain low utilization communities or affordable housing? And thinking with my colleague Jen, should this be something that we push as a priority in the budget moving forward, just so that we make sure everybody gets their fair share?
Yeah, so regarding your planning question, we're at the early phases. So the state has applied for BEAD, Digital Equity Act, and Capital Project Fund monies from the federal government. We had to put together a budget. There's a pretty extensive hearing process. We're still waiting for our acceptance letter from the federal government. But once that money comes in, we're required to have a statewide planning process for developing a broadband infrastructure program, and part of that plan must be a digital equity plan, and staff and commerce are actually being hosted at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. There's a lot of federal support for states to develop these plans, and so we're going to be convening with some partners in New York this weekend to start thinking about how we can have an effective and equitable plan with the state.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Lina Bravo. I work for Providence Public Library. I want first to share that we have been blessed to work in partnership with One Neighborhood Builders. So we have been able to offer digital learning, digital instruction, computer classes, help to use mobile devices, help for residents to connect to health television, and many other needs. Help for parents to navigate and understand how to use the software that the schools are using, like the Skyward, in order to understand the progress of their children. So I would say that libraries, we are a key partner, because there is still a gap, the resident and a great device, great internet connection, great resources for free, but they still don't know how to access them. They don't know how to turn on the computer, how to move the mouse, how to type in a keyboard. So we can offer that, we can close that gap, ramp up our services. I am a coordinator and a supervisor of a team of about 6 to 10 teachers, but we rely on funding that is not always available. So one of my dreams is that we can participate in that planning process, that how to offer that continuous learning support that guarantee that the families will have access immediately to that technology. So I would like to hear a little bit more about the planning process, just to bring that instruction to residents. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, so thank you. So Office of Library and Information Sciences in Rhode Island is going to be one of our planning partners in that in the digital equity planning process. They're coming to New York with us. But yes, let's exchange contact information because my first priority is learning about what good programs already exist in the state so that I'm not reinventing the wheel, but learning what good programs exist and then trying to scale and replicate them throughout the state.
For many years, the broadband providers have offered a low-cost product for affordable communities. Can you speak to the differences between the broadband that residents need and what those products are and why they haven't been so successful in increasing access to broadband? For anybody.
So I can tell you that in Central Falls it's been a challenge. It's a lot of the information that comes from these companies to offer their services. There's a language barrier. So everything that's sent to them is in English. They're going to receive this at home, they're going to throw it in the trash. You have to communicate with these residents in their language to understand. But more than that, you need to have like direct contact with them. Because just receiving a flyer in the mail is not enough. And I have to be honest, I received some of these flyers I have called. It's not always what they send me. You have to read like the language on the bottom to truly understand because there's all these extra charges.
I'll jump in quickly on this one because I've experienced it. You know, when I first started podcasting, I was delivering a newspaper. I was, selling buying a bike and flipping it on Facebook Marketplace, purely hustling. Didn't have a job, just doing it full time without getting paid. So I had this cheap, if you will, internet. And boy, is there a gap between the quality there and what you would get if you paid for it. Middle of the road, never mind premium. So, yeah, it's inexpensive, but there's a major equity gap between those who have discount internet, versus name brand internet, even if it comes through a major provider.
And so I'll echo that. In our building, we only had, basically Cox was available. So when we partnered up with Ocean, we have the same network. So when I talk about, what do they have and what do we have, it's, we have what they have. So now it is totally equal. Those $30 programs, I was on that for a little bit. And you call them up and go, this isn't really working well. And they go, yeah, you got to upgrade. So they eventually get their money back. So you're getting your $30 back, but you need that other 30 to get back up to like normal kind of speed. And, so that's what I'm at.
Good morning, my name is Sharon Morris, and I commend Jen on the efforts that we're doing in the West End. And I know I personally, I listen to the service providers here, and because we've worked around the state, and other than buildings that are one-structured buildings, it's difficult for us to provide internet services to our residents. And I know I've personally reached out to several, so I'm interested to see what you're doing to help some of us affordable housing developers who are throughout the state to be able to provide equitable digital services, because I know I've tried to be running into roadblocks. And so unfortunately I stick with the cops because they give me free internet for my community room. My residents can access it from the community room, but not in their apartments. And they've given us free computers and discounted services. And we purchased a hotspot because we're a large customer. But we want to provide services to more families, so I'm curious to see what you're willing to do to get out of your comfort zone to help some of us in larger areas to be able to provide the same services that some of the smaller communities are able to provide, because I don't see that happening.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly sorry that there were roadblocks. The Office of Broadband and Digital Equity in the state of Rhode Island is about 3 months old, so part of my task is to remove those roadblocks, so I'd be happy to talk with you about what challenges you faced and how we can overcome them together. But I think the work like what Tommy's doing in Newport is an example of how we can take some action to bring broadband to the communities we strive. But again, I'd love to connect with you and hear about what the specific issues were and how we can address them together.
I'll just add, thank you, Sharon, for coming. It's good to see you. I think that every effort should be applauded. So even though you're not currently able to provide in-home internet for every of the residents, the fact that it's available in the community room and there's hotspot access, it's every step in the right direction. But I do think that for us to be able to really achieve this at scale, we all can't individually be kind of fighting that battle on our own, right? There's a huge amount of technological know-how that has to occur, and it seems kind of wasteful for us all to be banging our head all by ourselves, figuring out, well, how do we do this? So I do hope that ultimately is a takeaway, that the lessons that we've derived in our case study and that we collectively have figured out can be compiled through this new office. And congratulations for the state and Congress for creating an office and hiring Brian, so that we don't all have to figure this out all by ourselves every single time. That's ultimately, I think, an important goal.
Hi, my name is Brianne. I am the Health Systems Transportation Manager at Rhode. I just had a question, Jen. So you have mentioned that if somebody hasn't paid their bill in the past, they're not able to sign up for the contract. So I guess I'm wondering how you bridge that barrier, especially in a place like Newport where there's limited options.
So for our Wi-Fi project, we have completely bypassed working directly with the provider, with Cox. We're accessing the broadband via our contract with Ocean. So individuals who have been kind of prohibited from opening an account due to poor credit in the past, that is no longer a problem. But I think it is a significant barrier. If you are also maybe undocumented and you're fearful of opening credit, those exist. That's how we've overcome it. I don't know if my colleagues want to say anything about that.
So, Suleiman, have we come across residents who have said that they can't get connected or can't get services if they haven't paid their bill?
I think if they owe more than $500 on the Cox bill, they don't have a problem with getting the service, but other than that, Verizon.
So we really haven't come across that, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. Like, I have a great relationship with Cox and Verizon, so I'm sure I'll be able to compensate just because I've done it with, Marianne today. And I'll tell you what, I have had to call to say, this resident needs services, what can we do to help them, and they work with me. So I'm pretty sure we can work with Cox and Verizon.
Final question?
I'm David Background from Providence. Our initiative to give Wi-Fi to policyholders residents in the city. I work for the city, so there was a collaboration with the city about that road. And the city can leverage good high-speed internet because it also has contracts with first responders, the police, and fire and so forth. And I was wondering if any of you knew examples of incentives for cities to partner with the CDCs and other nonprofits so that it may be a avenue to access higher quality and also a discount because we had services, so Cox gave us a discount being part of the
So I know the state has a lot of money. It's getting a lot of money, which is why Ryan is here. But we can connect with Education Superhighway. That's who we worked with. They're a nonprofit. They actually reached out to us because they wanted to help Central Falls, and I'm sure Central Falls is actually the first city in the nation to implement this and get it going with them. And I'm pretty sure that they're looking for many more to work with.
Education Superhighway has reached out to the state as well. And I would say that I'm not sure of any discounts, but there is certainly an opportunity of scale for cities in a region to partner and reduce costs for infrastructure deployment and other programs.
And then my experience was, we're fortunate, we work with Ocean. Ocean works with our city governments as it is, so they have relationships, right? And then that sort of was above my pay grade. And so they're having those discussions. And and then when it comes to like the $30, that is a discussion that is happening now of how do we pay for it annually. We're fortunate in the way we wrote the grants initially so that we'd be covered. We believe that HUD is going to eventually, because they're already using the words, it's a necessity, right? It's a basic need. And so much like water and electricity. So I think once that sort of happens, and it might take the government a few years to get to that point, that annual fees, particularly for executive directors who go, we want to put something out here, and then go, sorry. So we're getting there. So I think relationships are already formed at your local government. Find out who the provider is.
All right, well, thank you all very much. Ryan Thorn, Director of Broadband Strategy for Rhode Island Commerce, Tommy Sheehan, Resident Commissioner for the Newport Housing Authority, Rivera of Central Falls, and Jennifer Hawkins, President and Executive Director at One Neighborhood Builders. I'm Bill Bartholomew. We are 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes-ish away from our next session here. And thank you all for being here and for participating.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,100 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.